Hello everyone, another day. So I'm knocking out a whole bunch of these because I kind of have to balance my passion with topography, geography, things like that, and geology. Yeah. So I have to do that. And I have to balance it between remodeling my house. I don't have a kitchen right now. I got to put the kitchen back together. I had to restructure the support wall for the kitchen window because apparently there wasn't one. The window was just dangling there, and that was a mess. We were very disappointed to find that out. I mean, my house was 100 years old. Go figure, right? It wasn't built that way, that's for sure. It was remodeled by someone earlier on, and they didn't, either one, they didn't know what they were doing, or two, they didn't care. I'm not really sure which. Anyhow, it's a lot of work for me to do, and then on top of that, I got to stop and chill out for a little while and play Minecraft with the wife. Right now, my daughter's got my wife started on some pandemically popular game on Nintendo, and they stole her from me. So now they're like all three playing together. And I am not playing that game. It doesn't look like it's any fun for me. I have a hard time having fun with Minecraft, but it's okay because I just follow my wife through Minecraft, and it's like real life. I just end up doing what she tells me to do. Go build that over there. So I go build that over there. It's like, okay, I'm done. What's next? But it's fun, It's kind of you don't have to spend a lot of energy running around. You do your little avatar does all the running for you, so you never run out of breath. Okay, enough of me. So here it is. I'm taking full advantage of the opportunity here for me to go into what it is I like to do the most. And here's Google Earth again, because Google Earth is a wonderful tool. I love it. I just wish that we had this kind of detail for all of the planets and the moon and stuff. The moon, you look at it in Google Earth, and it's they're working on it, but it's not quite up to where Earth is. Obviously, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of satellites buzzing around the moon like we do on Earth. Okay, so over here on my list, you see that I have asthenospheric tsunamis. Now, like I've said before, it could be lithospheric tsunamis, it could be asthenospheric tsunamis. I'm going with asthenospheric, meaning that I'm thinking that it's a little bit more viscous than runny, okay, for those that might not be familiar with the term viscosity or whatever, but so it's runnier in the asthenosphere than possibly in the, and I could be totally wrong about that, but I'm going to go with that right now. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the asthenospheric tsunamis. I just finished mapping out all of them. Now, I already touched on the Siberian asthenospheric tsunami in Russia, and some of them I kind of renamed, like the Nunavut asthenospheric tsunami is actually a series of two tsunamis. So, because Nunavut is a huge place, right? Well, I don't want both of them titled Nunavut, so one of them's actually going to be called the Rocky Mountain asthenospheric tsunami, even though it pretty much comes from the north, and it was in part responsible for the creation of the Hudson Bay. Okay, so here are all my tsunamis. Bam, right there. Notice, now that you can see every tsunami that I've ever mapped, they all seem to be pretty much favoring one side of the planet. Isn't that unique? There they go. And again, ladies and gentlemen, here's the culprit right here. That is the the latest world-class impactor to strike the planet. And you see the havoc it created by causing the ATLAPAC fracture that comes up through here from the Atlantic Ocean and travels back over here and comes down through here into the Pacific Ocean, which is why I call it the ATLA, as for Atlantic, and PAC as for the Pacific. So the ATLAPAC fracture in actuality really only kind of goes around North America, and it doesn't necessarily cut the planet in half like one might think. And Eurasia literally is Pangaea, and Pangaea has only been moved just slightly from what is currently our North Pole, somewhere right up in here. So if I go down here, do I have a North Pole? I got poles. Here's my poles. Whoops, that's a little few more poles than I wanted to show you. Well, I don't feel like looking for the North Pole right now, but I could point it out to you. But that's not important as much as you notice they're almost all on one hemisphere. Well, that's because of that impactor. We also had another impactor right here where you have the pop right there, and the birdie goes, comes down through here and goes out through here and kind of feeds into that one asthenospheric or asthenostream score that comes across the planet, and that's their latest scores. So every time a world-class impactor strikes the planet, it leaves scores in the Earth, and those scores tell you basically what the speed of the Earth is. All right, and the last two world-class impactors, I'm thinking this was the one that preceded the South China Sea Impactor. But you see the craziness the South China Sea Impactor basically caused on our planet, and it's so much smaller than this guy. It was way smaller, so you can only imagine what this dude must have caused when he struck the planet, right? So basically, when I'm coming over here, one of the first waves we see in North America begins right about here, and this is going. I can go ahead and do my borders and names again, and we're going to zoom in on that. Right at about there. We'll wait for Google Earth to load up the stuff. So it started right in here, left all this material behind. This stuff pretty much got stretched out. You can see how the north just started, basically, the whole continent started literally falling toward the South Pole and separating from the other parts of the continents, as you see right here, where this shoreline basically separated from Greenland, so on and so forth. And the flow went through here, basically took all of the land that was continental up in this area and just moved it down. All of this, it was like a landslide, a mudslide, where it just basically cleared out a whole quarry of Hudson Bay and moved all this mass. So basically, and I'm sorry, I keep saying basically. The majority of the mass that would have been up here, you find down here now. Interesting. And that's probably where you get most of your material that created the Rocky Mountains. That's right, this tsunami is responsible for the Rocky Mountains. Now, another thing we can add into this that helps sometimes are the primary vortices. So as the primary vortices come into play, you can see how, doodle, stop. The Arctic vortex is rotating in the opposite direction as the planet, as I've said many times, and so the current of that rotational process is going this way, which is indeed in a lot of ways why these waves are coming down and moving. They're being swept westward. That westward sweep isn't only basically controlled by this particular vortex, it's also and most primarily controlled by the coefficient of solar wind pressure that is pretty much why the planet rotates in the same direction as the sun as well. So it comes down and it sweeps down into this fashion here. The Pacific Oceanic vortex is rotating counterclockwise as well, which means that these two here, well, this one's rotating. Did I say counterclockwise? I don't know my clock from a hole in the ground. Here it is. This one's going clockwise. Actually, I might not have said it at all. I just said it was going against, in the opposite direction as the Earth's rotation. So it's going clockwise here. Pacific Oceanic vortex is going counterclockwise, which makes this tangent a flowing tangent. Over here, we have the Supali-Winnie vortex, which is rotating counterclockwise, and the Arctic vortex rotating clockwise, which creates a flowing tangent at this point where the two 45-degree radii meet, and Then, of course, with the Pacific Oceanic Vortex rotating counterclockwise and the Sapaliwini Vortex rotating counterclockwise, we end up with a turbulent tangent down here where those two boundaries meet. And you see how the Pacific Oceanic Vortex is basically cutting this one small stretch of continental mass away from the North American continent, and it'll end up following the perimeter all the way up around like this until it comes down over here sometime. Eventually, who knows when. And it may take another world-class impactor to loosen it up and make it happen a little bit quicker. None of us will ever be alive when any of that happens. And if there's an impactor as large as with the magnitude, I mean, maybe it's not as large as this impactor here, but maybe the magnitude that it had was greatly superseded the magnitude of the North Pacific Oceanic Impactor. Okay, which I'm putting my mouse right on that one's footprint. All right, now you got these birdies all over the planet. All you have to do is look for the birdies, scientists. I don't want to sound condescending, but the scientists I've been speaking to were condescending toward me, and so the point is, we should all forget about who might be smarter than who. It's not a contest. It's let's find out what the Earth does in reality and start to put it to use, right? Now you can't argue that these look like waves, even though I swear I was laughed at for even bringing up the concept. And I know I'm not the first one to bring it up, so I know that the real scientists that preceded me that had already touched on this theory, Doodle, they were onto something, but maybe they were able to describe it in the detail that I've been able to put together here for everyone, or maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't as familiar with impactors or crater analysis as I have become over the course of the years. I haven't always been the greatest analyst for crater impacts, okay? So I'm not saying that I'm the world's greatest analyst for impact sites, but I'm telling you that because of my failures in determining and identifying and analyzing crater impacts in combat, I learned from it. And it's that learning that is helping me to evaluate what it is I'm looking at on our planet right now. And this is why I'm trying to tell you guys, there's a lot to be learned about projectiles flying through outer space that clobber us. Okay? So this is one thing here that we are looking at, and this particular impactor in the South China Sea basically caused what I refer to as the North Pole slip. So I have to go back. I contradict myself a lot of the time. I'm sorry. But since I'm not a scientist, I'm not going to get dinged. Okay, so I am a citizen scientist, you might say, of sorts. But basically, when you look at the North Pole slip, you got the ATLAPAC fracture going along here. It was probably already a fracture before any of this occurred, and it was already getting really tight, and things were pushing against each other because of the vortical rotations, disagreeing with each other and agreeing in some places and not others. And then when this impactor struck the Earth, man, it just let loose. It was like somebody took that little clock and took the screw that holds the back plate off of the clock, and then all of the clockworks went bang all over the place. Yep, that's kind of how it worked. So you have this part of, and I've mentioned this before, we're going to go ahead and get rid of all this other stuff. This corner of Greenland was over here. This was not the ghost of Kamchatka. I'm correcting myself. Kamchatka is down here. And I was correct earlier on in something. Actually, when I first analyzed it, I do believe I identified it by the correct land feature. And the correct land feature is actually Chukotka. So this is the ghost of Chukotka, not the ghost of Kamchatka. Okay? Kamchatka, from this point forward, got ripped out of here by, guess what? The Japanese asthenospheric tsunami. Nope. My bad. Well, it looked like Japan for a second right there with all this crap on. No, okay, this one is the Kamchatka. The one I'm referring to is the Kamchatka asthenospheric tsunami, because it basically came down from the North Pole, ripped through here, traveled underneath the continent, ripped through here, ripped Kamchatka completely away from the larger landmass, pushed it out here to the end of the wave crest. Japan happened afterward. There's a sequence of events here. Not all these waves occurred at the same time. Because when you go on the beach and you watch all the little tickety-doo waves coming in onto the beach, they don't all hit the beach at the same time. One moves in, then another one moves in, then another one moves in, and they move in on top of each other. And you see the little foamy crap here, and another little foamy crap coming on top of that foamy crap, and this is all the foamy crap right here. All right. Now, we're going back to the Rocky Mountains right here, right? Okay, and we see how our primary vortices are working into the continents here, and so you basically have the Sapali-Winnie vortex pretty much driving the material, like the Aleutian, I did it again. The Appalachian Mountains down in a drippy raindrop kind of a shape going right there, right? But that's also partly induced by the Bermuda Rise impactor. And then you have all this material right here just kind of like getting thrown in together. And this part here, so the Rocky Mountains were not entirely created by the tsunami. The tsunami probably most definitely raised them up. But however, if you look down here, because you have pretty much the Rockies and all that going down through Mexico. So what it is you've got the Pacific Oceanic vortex rotating counterclockwise, and it kind of like creates a wall. So as the coefficient of solar wind pressure drag is drawing the or forcing the continental masses westward, it basically is taken North America and squished it into kind of like a wall, a lot of friction right there, and this vortex is pretty much stopping it, as we can see. It wasn't able to stop it completely, but it's tearing apart where it did stop it. Now, then we have the Nunavut. I decided to leave it as the actual Nunavut asthenospheric tsunami. So it started breaking apart all of the Nunavut area territory up here away from the North Pole, just like icebergs break away from, similar to the way icebergs break away from ice sheets. But it's going in the opposite direction. It's the continent breaking away from the icebergs instead of the icebergs actually going this way. They're not going that way. The whole continent's going this way and leaving remnants behind. And these are the remnants. And then it came down here and created this little wavy action of stuff. Okay, now, Alaska. So we've discussed how Chukotka was up here and fit right into there. This little guy fit right up into there, and he also fits and matches Alaska right here. And Alaska pivoted from over here. So this point of Alaska was over here next to this point of this particular zone, which would have been up here tighter at the time before this all kind of drew down toward the south. And at that point in time when this one kind of like landing gear, you've got like my left hand is Chukotka and my right hand is Alaska. They're like this, and then when they draw back up like landing gear in an aircraft, it came down. They were like this to begin with, in a sense, right? And then they go, and then there they are. And that was all caused by the Aleutian asthenospheric tsunami, which came through here and swept around. And it didn't come down from here and wash down the center like a wave going out like that. It didn't do that at all. In fact, the primary force of this asthenospheric tsunami traveled along the western limit of this area and then swept down through here, creating this little curlicue with a great force of current, and then swept over here into what created and bunched up into Alaska, and very well may have put this material and caused it to somewhat go down here and tie in with this guy down here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and limit some of this stuff. And that's the Aleutian Asthenospheric Tsunami right there. Okay. Then we have down here, we have the Nunavut. We have the Rocky Mountain Tsunami right there. And then we have the Nunavut Tsunami right there. Moving westward, we'll go back up. We have the Aleutian Tsunami right there. Okay. Now we're going to go over to Russia, and all the other tsunamis pretty much flowed right under Russia, mostly under Russia, you'll notice. But it created a pathway in the surface of the earth just the same, because basically what you have is first of all, you have this great big mass of material moving underneath the continent. So it's picking the continent up as it's coming through, and then as it leaves, the continent sinks back down. So in other words, imagine yourself getting into your bed with your covers. Your covers are over your legs, but you haven't fully extended your legs. So as your leg is moving through the covers, it's pushing the covers up further into the shape of your body, all right? But if your legs were to separate from your body and then just kind of come out and fall out the end of the bed, then the the blankets and sheets would go and come back down. That's what creates these features we see that are kind of like they kind of like leave a ghost. Period. In much the same way that you see that we were able to make body casts of people that actually existed when, say, for instance, that one volcano erupted. I think, what was it? Vesuvius or something? And you have people in there, like that, right? Frozen in time. Well, you get that same kind of cavity going on underneath of all these guys. And then you have the crests that come out. So the waves traveled underneath the Russian continent, flowed in whatever direction they ended up flowing in, and then the wave, basically because of centrifugal force, the whole time it's traveling underneath of this continent, is trying to burst out and flow out onto the surface of the planet. And that's when you see this happening right here. This is when it actually began to burst out and flow over the top of the Pacific Oceanic seafloor. All right. Now we're going to go back over here and we're going to look at some of this Russian stuff. Here's Russia. All right. The first wave from Russia is the most primary and most devastating wave to ever take place. Bam! Right there. So it basically came from this fracture, this huge fracture we see right here. And you can see how it kind of feeds right into that whole thing. I mean, I might not have been precisely accurate with the full extent of. I apologize for Doodle. Doodle's really screaming at me. Hang on. Now she's cussing at me because she knows I said her name. She's like, dude, if you don't feed me, I'm going to scream through the rest of your show. Okay, so what I'm going to do... No, I don't want to do that. Can I pause? I don't think I can pause. Okay. Doodle, please. I'm trying to talk to people, okay? Stop competing with me. All right. Anyhow, this came all the way down. This was the first wave. And so when I was discussing how the impactor basically made a bunch of material hit, it was a depth charge, depth burst if you want, and it was, well, that I usually call them depth bursts, not depth charges. It hit the earth, blows a bunch of material out, and then the earth comes back and fills it in. And as it's filling in, it's also being affected by the material up here coming down and filling it in and creating this swirly-Q stuff that interacted with the primary vortex of the North Banda Basin and actually pushed the central point of the North Banda Basin vortical core a little bit further south than what it would be under normal conditions. All right, and we still have the activity going on here. This vortex is still alive, and the reason we know that is because of the degree of earthquakes that we're having right here in this region. It hasn't stopped. It's an old wound, and it's not healing. Okay, now that was the first wave. Then we have the second wave. Bam! The second wave is this one, which I've referred to as the Kamchatka wave, because it comes down, gets swept toward the east. Don't ask me why. I don't know why, because most of them end up going toward the west. This one went to the east. It came down through here, and if you're wondering what this little hook is here, well, basically when you had Chukotka up here in its original position and then it pivoted, it took all of that material and bunched it up together like a pivotal point, right? Like a hinge. So then you have this tsunami coming down here, and it rips Kamchatka right out of its pocket, sticks it out here on top of the crest, and makes this wave. Japan isn't here yet. Well, that's not all Japan. I mean, this is Hokkaido right here. This is some other piece of land belongs to Russia. All right, so this did not happen. This one happened first. Then you have the third wave. Bam! I'm missing a wave. Okay, so we have the third wave 5 must still be down here at the bottom. Yep, it is. All right, so we're going to take wave 5 and run it up here toward the top. Hopefully I don't have any algorithm glitches that dump my info. Boop. There it goes. All right, folks. Now. Oh, wait. That wasn't it. It was supposed to be here. All right. So then you have the third wave, which came down through here. And now the third wave is the Japanese Asthenospheric Tsunami, which created Japan, all of Japan, and whatever Russian area that is. And it kind of ran into a little resistance right here, which is where you end up with, that little, I don't know, two-bump sort of a looking thing there. I didn't really see any difference, any separation there between waves. I think it was just, I mean, that happens. You have waves that come in like this onto the shore, and then they go whoop, because something catches it in the middle. It doesn't, there's more force. Actually, maybe not necessarily so much something that catches it in the middle as it's coming around, bowing toward you like this, but then moves forward like this on around the edges, because there's more mass of material moving faster and heavier on the edges of that particular crest that give it this kind of shape. It's more likely what we have right there. Now we go to the fourth wave. The fourth wave ended up sweeping down and creating the Himalayas. And in the process of creating the Himalayas, also created the Taklamakan supermassive volcano, which in turn ran lava all this way. Couldn't go over. It wasn't powerful enough to go over the top of the Himalayas. So the Himalayas created a wall, further protecting India, and the lava flowed to the east and then south right into this vortex, feeding into the vortex. That's why it goes burp and then keeps that curvature going right around the clock. And then on the west, it just goes out here and spills out across across Persia, all the way through here like a nightcap. Whee, whee, bloop, stops right there. Now, Spain wasn't down here. Earlier on, before the North Pole slipped, Spain's corner right here actually met over here. England was a little bit in tighter along like right in here where this shoreline met that point. Ireland was boop right up into here. These 2 points come together. You see how that works. This all gets closed up. This gets pushed back down in. This one falls back into here. And in Greenland, as this point in Greenland pivots right over here, this side of Greenland matches up with this area of, I think that's Scandinavia or something like that. Norway, one of those places. And yeah, my geography isn't always perfect. I know I'm mostly perfect in every other aspect, but you know, anyway. And you have basically your vortically-posal area here. And for some reason, we don't really have too much activity going on here. You've got the Lake Victoria vortex rotating counterclockwise, and the Sipaliwini vortex rotating. Wait, is it rotating counterclockwise? No, my bad. The Lake Victoria vortex is rotating clockwise, while the Sipaliwini vortex is rotating counterclockwise, which gives you a turbulent tangent at these 2 points of border right there. And that means that that's partly why Spain is getting drawn down into here. Africa is going to be drawn down in through here and spit out down here at some point. And this part of Africa, yeah, don't doubt it for a minute, it's going to start looking like the Gulf of California and the San Andreas. It's going to start breaking up and going right up that way. And then we're going to see this material moving further south this way over the course of the next who knows how many millennia, right? If that's even a word. Okay. There you have it, folks. And then we have our last asthenospheric tsunami traveling underneath of the Russian continent. And began somewhere up in here. Put that stretch of ocean right there and comes down through here and pretty much gets all tied up down here in Persia, right? And that's why I titled it the Persian Asthenospheric Tsunami. Comes down here, pretty much fills up Persia and basically interacts with the lava flow that's coming out of the Taklamakan supermassive volcano. And this is basically the two activities that take place that seal off or cut off the Caspian Sea from the Gulf of Arabia and the Persian Gulf. I think that's what those are called. Alrighty then. Yeah, that pretty much covers all of those guys. And that concludes basically what it is I wanted to talk about in terms of asthenospheric tsunamis basically having a meltdown. So in summary, right quick, I'm just going to show you right quick. I'm going to turn them all back on. Bam. You see how they're all right around here. All basically pretty much almost central to this impact site right here. This one comes down the middle, then you have wave, wave, and then you have wave, wave, wave over there, right? And that's pretty much it. Okay, thank you for watching the show. Cheers and jeers are always welcome, and I hope that you will click like on the videos and subscribe. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down now. Thank you very much for watching.